The best way to ensure your safety is by knowing the importance of managing your social media accounts securely. How can we be safe on social media platforms?
So the best way to be safe online is to manage your privacy settings. I know that as social media evolves and grows, it's harder to want to keep your profile more locked down. As like everyone wants to become an influencer, everyone wants to see, how many likes their picture is going to get. But unfortunately, everyone who's looking at your picture, if it's public, they're not all teenagers your age. They're not all good people. The best way you can manage that is just keep your profile private and watch who you allow to become a follower of yours. If you don't know a person, there's no good reason to allow them access to your personal information and your pictures, your private pictures. Especially there's pictures at the beach, which you think are innocent. You're having fun with your friends at the beach, having a picnic, you're in a bathing suit. It should be an innocent picture. I've seen these images of young girls and boys show up in the same folders on a subject of mine with completely nude images of children. So it's not that much different in their minds. So I want you to think next time you're posting that picture, if your profile isn't private, it's most likely not reaching the target audience that you think it is. It's not your peers who are all looking at it. And any teen groups on these social media sites are really big targets for subjects of mine. So any subjects of mine is going to be a pedophile. So it's someone who is looking to either harm a child or anyone who's looking for explicit images of a child online. And our definition of child is just somebody under 18. These teen groups on, Reddit, Discord, Instagram, Facebook, any of these are hotspots for pedophiles or for subjects to be in to find their next target. You think that you're in these groups and everybody else in there is going to be a teenager too. You think it can be a safe space to talk about your issues. And then as soon as you post something in there, they kind of hone in on that. And then they try to reach out to you and become a follower of yours or direct message you. And that's like that. We see that so often. So not to keep harping on it, but yeah, the biggest thing is keep your profiles as private as possible, especially these images of you out with your friends or anything that identifies you, where you go to school, or the fact that you're in a club that would be targeted towards teenagers or children.
So what would you say the most apps are? What app is most dangerous?
I would say a lot of the ones we see most commonly in our investigations are Kick, which I thought went away a while ago, but it's still hanging around. Omegle is another website. I thought that one went away a while ago. It seems to be a resurgence of becoming more popular. Snapchat is a fun app. It's great, but I think a lot of people think they're a lot more anonymous on there than they are. Just because you don't get a notification that somebody screenshotted your image, I can almost guarantee they took a picture with another device of the device with your image on it. So you think you're safe. It didn't get screenshotted. It's not going to go anywhere. Especially if you're talking to somebody you don't know. They just assume that they took a picture and they have it still. Any website that's really, there's no identifiers that you have to put in to register, such as Omegle or Kick, where you don't have to be verified to use it. Those are the ones that are most unsafe, and those are the ones that are most hard for law enforcement on the back end if something does happen to try and track somebody down that exploited a child or exploited you. So I think, in my opinion, those make those the most dangerous because they're so hard to find the person. And I think Instagram is a great app. It's not, I wouldn't say it's dangerous. It's just very common because they know so many teenagers have Instagrams. And so that's a hotspot for subjects. It's not dangerous if you use it the right way and you keep your privacy settings up. It's just don't think that you're safe just because you're on a very common app like Facebook or Instagram.
Scammers will take any length to follow through on their intentions. So oftentimes the warning signs are very hard to notice. From your experience, what would you say the warning signs are?
So we're seeing a lot of these scammers that's very prevalent on Instagram right now, which does make it a little bit easier to spot some warning signs because they have to have a profile page. And typically their profile image will either not to have a person in it or to be very unidentifiable person. Now that in and of itself is not really a great warning sign, that's very common, but start there and then you'll look and they'll have very few followers. Then they won't be following a lot of pages. Like, and I mean, not like very few, like maybe dozens, where that's very, like highly uncommon, especially for a teenager. You're going to have hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will be minimal or oftentimes it's no posts. Like they have no pictures or anything on their page. They're not tagged in any pictures. They don't have much of a bio or description at the top of their page. It's just very blank. And I've seen where victims will call them out on that or ask and be like, why don't you have any pictures? And they're like, oh, I'm just really private and I prefer to talk one-on-one. That's an odd response to, like, you don't have a social media profile. Ask someone to be your friend that you don't know and then turn around and say you're just a really private person. Mm-hmm. They will admit, like, oh, I just randomly added you. Too. Like if you ask, how do I even know you? They're like, oh, I was just scrolling through and I saw you. An odd thing to happen too. I don't know how often that like happens in general. That's a pretty big red flag if they have some story about how they were scrolling and they just randomly added you because they saw you. Again, if your privacy settings are up, that shouldn't happen anyway. A big red flag is if they very quickly transition into send me nude images. It's like almost as soon as they find out how old you are. So I've seen it where they'll be like, the victim will say, I'm 16. And then the person will be like, immediately transition into, okay, well, do you want to exchange nude images? Very abrupt. They don't want to really talk or anything. And the grammar, I know texting isn't always like, you don't have the best grammar. You're not thinking full out sentences. It's just not, it's not right, like it should raise a red flag. And I have a couple that I'll read to you. I'm sorry I couldn't show these to you on your screen, but they won't understand your emojis. So I have an example of a chat here where a victim said, oh, okay, and then just did the laughing face emoji with the tears. The subject responds, they're like, what's that? And the kid says, what? And they're like, what is that emoji? And then he had to explain that I thought what you said was funny. There's no reason that anybody doesn't know what that means. That's common. I mean, I know what that means. So, and a teenager knows if you're 17, you know what that means. And then this person transitions into, it's really bored here. So the victim responds, same. And they respond, it's really bored. What can we do to make our chat lively and fun? It's just, if you see that, like that's not the normal way a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old would talk. That's not a normal way a 25-year-old would talk. And then they say, don't you mind sneak pic exchange, no SS with me and some fun. And that was their way of saying that they wanted to do a nude picture exchange. And then they're saying, but you can't screenshot. Mm-hmm. It's just an odd way of writing. And if you see, like, if you have to sit there and read it 3 times to try and figure out what they're saying, like, that's a red flag. Mm-hmm. And the big thing that I'm seeing over and over again is they're asking for a full body image, nude, with your face in it. And that anytime if anyone asks you to send a nude image and put your face in it, that's a giant red flag. What they don't know, a typical teenager, if they are looking for nude images or soliciting them, they don't care. They're not going to give you instructions how to take it. If, like, and these people, they're saying they want your face in it because once they have your face in it, then they can use it against you, because then you're more identifiable. So I would say that is the absolute like biggest sign. If they're going to ask for nudes, if they're asking to put your face in it, you just that's a telling sign that they're a scammer.
Wow. That's really scary.
Yeah, and it's scary how often this happens. Like, I can tell you that we open cases on these weekly in this area of this happening.
That's terrible.
Can I just ask a quick
Yeah.
question for you? So we've kind of discussed this in our preparation for this, but oftentimes victims will get an image from the suspect or the target, not the target, the
Yeah,
your
subject, yeah.
So how, can you kind of explain that portion of it? Like, they're getting an image, so the victim's getting an image of somebody they feel is a teenager, they look like a teenager. Can you explain where they get that picture from?
Yeah, that's a great point. They typically want to send an image first to put a victim at their new target of the victim at ease. Because if you're asking for nude images from somebody, they don't typically want to be the one to send it first, because they're like, oh, if you do it, I'll do it. They don't usually give a lot of pushback when you ask the subject, the account, and you say, hey, will you go first and then I'll send you one. If there's hardly any pushback or anything, and they just immediately send you a nude image of a girl or a boy who appears to be a teenager, I mean, that's a giant red flag too. And more than likely, this person is an adult sitting, I mean, a lot of times they're sitting in another country, and they got that image from victimizing another child. So they just keep a stash of pictures as they get them. And because every image they're getting has a face in it, then they can turn around again and use your image and distribute that to victimize other people.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's a vicious cycle too. And so like these children they're victimized once, and teenagers, like they're victimized one time when they send the initial image, and then that's being used again against other victims. So I mean, it's scary, it's awful. And once it's out there, there's really not a lot. We can stop the person, but it's nearly impossible to stop the image.
Yeah. So then now if you're put in this situation and someone's asking you for these photos, what should they say in return?
So the easiest and best response is just no. Don't try and go into this game where I see this all where like if you send one first, then I'll send one, which is what we just talked about, where you're just gonna get an image of another child who was victimized. The best thing you can just say is there's nothing wrong with saying no. You don't even know this person to begin with. So you should never feel bad. They try and guilt people. They try and pressure people. They do try and push it, and they're not going to take no for an answer the first time. And just understand that you just either block them immediately, which is probably that's like the best option, is just block them. If they're asking you for nude images and you don't know them, immediately block them and report them on whatever site you're on. Or just say no. Definitely don't go into the back and forth of you send one first, I'll send one. And like we talked about before, don't feel comfortable sending one just because they sent you one first. It's not them. Then that's the best option. No, and ignore them or block them.
Okay. And then, so some of the legal ramifications. So if I were to send a picture to this adult, am I in trouble? Am I like the suspect here, or am I the victim?
Okay, that's a great question. It's one I definitely want to make sure everybody understands leaving here today and from this presentation is you are the victim, 100%. If you are under 18, you don't have the ability to like provide consent for this. If someone is pressuring you into doing this, that is a criminal act. They are just the attempt to get you to send the image is a violation of federal law. You sending the image is not, we don't consider that your fault. You have an adult who is pressuring you and enticing you into doing this. You are a victim in the eyes of the FBI, in the eyes of your local police department. You did not commit a crime. You will not be charged with a crime. We want people to come forward if this happens to them because of the emotional, mental ramifications it can have on you, and understand that you will be protected. You will be provided resources. You have not committed a crime. So there's
And
no,
I just want to follow up with something from our homeroom. Your question was if you receive an image or if you had sent an image?
If I had sent an image.
Okay, so the homeroom, one of the homerooms asked if you receive an image. So I'm minding my own business and someone sends me this image, whether it's someone that I know or someone I don't know. What should I do?
yeah, that's also a really good question. That is, you report that. So if you receive the image, if you're under 18 and you receive any nude image, so if it looks like it's of a child, if it looks like it's of an adult, it's unsolicited, you didn't ask for it, you're still being victimized in that situation. You didn't want this. Especially if it's of an adult, like that is a crime for an adult to send a nude image to a child. It's still a crime if it's not that person and they sent you an image of another child to them. Again, they are the one who committed a criminal act, and you will not be in trouble because you received that. And if you come and report that to your school resource officer, to the police, or to the FBI, if you report, you will not be in trouble coming forward and reporting that.
And who should you come forward to?
The best person to start with coming forward to is your local police department or your school resource officer. That's your best first point of contact. And they can kind of like, because they are more immediate, like obviously you have your school resource officer here, you have Pewaukee Police Department right down the road. You can contact the FBI and we will respond. It's just we're a little bit further away. We're a little bit bigger, so we're a little bit slower. We will address it, but for an immediate response and to kind of put your mind at ease, the first person is, the best person to talk to would be Julie here at your school.
And I think that puts a lot of people at ease, just kind of know that you're not in trouble if you send these pictures, and that it's a safe, like the door is always open, it's a safe place for you guys for us to reach for help. So I think that's really good to know.
Yeah, I hope that everyone leaves here thinking that you are a victim. Even if everything we talked about, you didn't do it, like you ignored kind of all the steps. Your profile's on public. You started talking to somebody you didn't know. You played this game of back and forth with them, with the images. And then you sent them a nude image. You're still a victim. Like the steps to protect yourself that were taken in those instances, but we're not just writing you off because, you didn't take enough steps to protect yourself. Anybody under 18, again, in our view, is a child and you were victimized. So don't think just because, I'm an idiot, I made mistakes, I did this wrong. It's not even worth reporting. It is. You are still a victim here.
And I feel that these subjects, they target teenagers because they are vulnerable and will, maybe not think about their decisions before they do it. So
Yeah.
they're targeted for a reason. So we understand that teenagers are very vulnerable and that, again, they're not at fault for this.
Right. And a lot of people think that, if I report this, my phone's going to get taken away and I'm never going to get it back. And I'm going to get, that they will get in trouble. Typically on our end, just like we would take a phone for a little bit of time just to get those messages off. Just specifically, that would be what we're looking for, to have a record of that. And then we don't keep people's devices. So I know that's a big fear, I think, of teenagers, to not be without their phone, which I understand. So don't think either that the FBI or the police are going to take my phone and I'm never going to see it again. That's not true either.
So one clarification that's coming from our homerooms is what if, so there's a lot of conversation here about an interaction with an adult, a strange adult that's trying to scam me. What about the interactions between two teenagers from the school, two kids that know each other? They're taking a nude photo, they are sharing it with one another. Are there legal ramifications or risk associated with doing that?
There's definitely risk, and I'd say the biggest risk of that is once you send your nude image that you think you're sending it to your boyfriend, or that I don't know how well you trust him, or your girlfriend, but chances are it's going to get out, and
At some point in time, you might break up.
Right. High school love doesn't always last forever, and somebody's going to get mad at somebody else. It's going to get out. It's going to end up in the hands of an adult at some point. It's just because you think it's like in this small town, or you're in your school district, smaller school district, It doesn't, like, it goes across oceans. Like, we see images of kids here and they're in Germany and Japan and everywhere. Legally, it's a little bit harder when it's kids involved, and there's a lot more steps to take at that point, and that's usually more of a local violation at that point if something happens. But anytime your nude images get sent, you are a victim. So even if the other person is a child, you've still been victimized. Anytime someone else sends your nude image to somebody else, that is a crime. So don't think, I know it is harder, it's definitely harder on our end to kind of intervene if the person sending out your image is also under 18. But I think you guys might deal with that a little bit more.
Yeah, so it's something that we created a municipal ordinance on maybe 3 years ago, as a sexting ordinance. So usually we get involved if it gets reported to us that nude images are exchanged. Although we don't condone it, we understand that teenagers do exchange nude photos with their significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, so be it. So we know that's all too common. We want to get across, the safety aspects of doing that, which Agent Sarah kind of explained. There could be some legal ramifications if you're knowingly sharing your photos because there's child pornography. So obviously it's a case-by-case basis. We try not to make this, an issue where we're referring it to our district attorney's office where they're going to be registered sex offenders or anything like that. But it is something that we may handle at a municipal level if we need to.
One last clarifying question for homeroom, and then we're going to have to wrap up. We do have 18-year-olds here. And so if I'm an 18-year-old who's a senior at the school and I receive a scammer type situation or I receive a nude image, how does that change my liability if I'm an adult as opposed to a child in these situations?
So receiving it, if you receive an image or a nude image of a child, you're still a victim, even if you're over 18. If you're not asking for it, it's unsolicited, then yes, you're still a victim. It does make it a little bit more difficult if you are 18, you took a nude image and you sent it out to someone else, and then they're trying to get money out of you or something, like, hey, I'm going to send your image out if you don't pay me. Federally, our statute stops at 18, so you don't have like the sex crime portion of it at that point, but it's still extortion. So a crime is still being committed. Somebody enticed you to do something and is trying to get money out of you for it. So you're still a victim. It just changes under what law that would fall.
Okay. So we have just about 1 minute for some closing.
All right, well, I hope you all take this information very seriously and understand the severity of this situation and the importance of it. I want to thank you two for being here. It was awesome that you guys took the time to help us be safe. If you guys have any further questions or need additional information, we'll be providing contact information for counselors, these two, and just more resources. And do not be afraid to ask for help if you need it. Do not hesitate. You are not in trouble. It's a safe place. So thank you guys and have a great day, and thanks for listening.
Yeah. All right, guys, I just want to say in closing, thanks for having me here. I think as the FBI, we need to be better about being more approachable and getting in front of students and, putting a face to this giant organization. Just not to scare everybody, but this is on the rise. Sex crimes online, all of this, it's because of COVID, it's really drove it up because kids were at home a lot more. And pedophiles were home a lot more. And I don't say that, I don't want to scare everybody. I don't want you to be afraid to go on the internet now. But it's just to be cautious, be wary. And next time you're talking to somebody online that you don't know, just have our voices in the back of your head. Think back to this presentation, just have that doubt. And if this did kind of scare anybody, or if this has happened to anyone that, you're thinking about it now that you heard us talk, I'm going to be here for a little bit longer. I know that Julie's going to be here for a little bit longer. We're going to stay and talk. So please feel free, like, we're here, come down and talk to us. Even if, you know, later on you hear your friends are talking about it, they don't want to come down now, they're afraid. Reach out at a later date anytime. We have tons of resources to provide to people that this has happened to.
Thank you.
Yeah.